Oh, good morning, all of you. In the previous video, we were reading the lesson on saying please, and we have read some part of it. Let us continue with the reading and understand what Gardiner has to say about courtesy and well behaved. He says that we infect the world with our ill humors. Bad manners probably do more to poison the stream of the general life than all the crimes in the calendar. So, the physical crime is less harmful than the bad behavior because with our ill humors we pollute the world, we infect the world, and bad manners they poison the stream of general life or the human being's life than the physical crime in the calendar. One wife who gets the black eye from an otherwise good natured husband, there are 100 who live a life of martyrdom under the shadow of a morose temper. Morose temper means what? Unhappy temper. So there is one wife who gets the insulting eye or a black eye from the otherwise good natured husband, but there are so many other people who live a life of martyrdom under the shadow of morose temper. Means they lead a very unhappy life with the unhappy temper or bad temper people. But all the same, the law cannot become a guardian of our private manners. See this. So the private manners, the manners in our society, that are all private manners, and no law can protect them. No law can guardian them or protect them of our private manners. No decalogue could cover the vast area of offences, and no court could administer a law which governed our social civilities, our speech, the tilt of our eyebrows, and all our moods and manners. So, there is no decalogue. Decalogue means what? The commandments, or there is no law or rule which can cover the vast area of our offenses or our crimes of ill behavior, and there is no court which could administer or which could have a control over our social activities or social civilities, our speech, or our moods and manners. But though we are bound to endorse the verdict against the left man, most people will have a certain sympathy with him. Now, as a human being, we try to take a verdict, try to take a kind of a verdict against the lift man. We feel against the lift man, but there are most of the people who will definitely sympathize with him. They will stand for the lift man. While it is true that there is no law that compels us to say please, there is a social practice much older and much more scared than any law which enjoins us to be civil. See this. So there is no law uh, in the court, or there is no rule which can makes us compulsory to say please. But it is just a social practice which is much older and much more scared than any law which enjoins us to be civil. And the first requirement of civility is that we should acknowledge a service. Service. Whenever we get any service, we should acknowledge it. We should know it that we have got some service, and that is the first requirement of civility. First requirement of to be polite, to be courteous. Please and thank you are the small change with which we pay our ways as a social beings. As a social beings, to say please or to say thank you. It is just a small change with which we just uh, pay a social being. It is one of the ways of being a social person. They are the little courtesies by which we keep the machine of life oiled and running sweetly. They put our intercourse upon the basics of a friendly cooperation and easy give and take instead of on the basis of superiors dictating to the inferiors. See this? It is just a communication or a kind of conversation on the basis of which we just put our friendly cooperation and easy give and take, easy communication method instead of on the basis of superior dictating to inferiors. It is a very vulgar mind that would wish to command where he can have the service for asking and have it with a willingness and good feeling instead of resentment. So, it would be so vulgar, very bad manner, a very ill manner that would wish to command, wish to have a control on the others for have the service of asking and have it with willingness and good feeling instead of resentment, and to have a willingness or good feeling instead of resentment, it would be a kind of beginning or being a good person. I should like to feature in this connection my friend. Here, the writer is giving the example of his friend, and he would like to give an example of his friend, the polite conductor, and his friend was conductor. By this discriminating title, I do not intend to suggest a rebuke to conductors generally. On the contrary, I am disposed to think that there are few classes of men who come through the ordeal of a very trying calling better than bus conductors do. Series. So here he has given one example, and he does not want to discriminate by taking the title of conductors generally, but on the contrary, he just disposed to think that there are few classes of men who come through the ordeal of very trying calling better than bus conductors do. So how the bus conductors call the people, and he does not want to insult or discriminate the conductor's class. Ordeal means what? Difficult or painful experience. Now the people who travel through the bus, they have very bad experience about conductors, that how conductors behave or how conductors call them. Here and there you will meet an unpleasant specimen who regards the passengers as his natural enemies, as a creatures whose chief purpose on the bus is to cheat him, and who can only be kept reasonably honest by a loud voice and an aggressive manner. So, here and there you will meet with a very bad, unpleasant specimen people who regards the passengers as his natural enemies, and as the creatures whose chief purpose on the bus is to cheat him, and who can only be kept reasonably honest by loud voice and aggressive manner. So there are so many people who treat the conductor very badly, and sometimes conductor also treat badly to the people. And there are so many such creatures or so many people who you will meet, uh, whose chief purpose is to cheat on conductor, and who can only be kept reasonably honest by a loud voice and aggressive manner. But this type is rare. But this kind of type of a people or of a conductor is very rare than it used to be. I fancy the public owes much to the underground railway company, which also runs the buses, for insisting on a certain standards of the civility in its servants and taking care that standard is observed. In doing this, it not only makes things pleasant for the traveling public but performs an important social service. It is not therefore with any feeling of unfriendliness to conductors as a class that I pay a tribute to the particular member of that class. Now, citing this example of conductors, that how conductors are get treatment from the passengers. So, therefore, with any feeling of unfriendliness to conductors as a class, that I pay tribute, he pays respect to the particular members of that class. I first became conscious of his existence one day when I jumped onto the bus and found that I had left home without any money in my pocket. So he is citing one experience that one day he just climbed up the bus and he found out that he had left the house without any money in his pocket. Everyone has had the experience and knows the feeling. And he says that everyone has a such experience. Without money, sometime we get into the bus. The mixed feeling which the discovery arouses. You are annoyed because you look like a fool at the best and like a knave at the worst. Knave, a dishonest person. And it is a very mixed kind of feeling which discovery arouses, and you feel very angry because you look like a fool at the best and like annoyed because you look like a fool and knave at the worst, very dishonest person to the others in the bus. You would not be at all surprised if the conductor eyed you coldly as much as to say, "Yes, I know that a stale old trick. Now then, off you get." And even if the conductor is a good fellow and lets you down easily, you are faced with the necessity of going back, and inconvenience, perhaps, of missing your train or your engagement. And what happens? The conductor says to you that he knows that stale old trick of that you haven't brought the money, but now then off you get, the conductor says very rudely. And even if the conductor is good fellow, he will let you down easily. You are faced with the necessity of going back. You feel insulted in the bus, and the inconvenience, you feel very uncomfortable, perhaps because of missing your train or your engagement. Having searched my pockets in vain for stray coppers, and having found I was utterly penniless, I told the conductor with an honest face as I could assume that I couldn't pay the fare and I must go back for money. So he explained everything to the conductor that he is penniless. He tried to find out some money, but he found that there is no money in his pocket. And he told the conductor with an honest face that uh, I could pay the fare. He could not pay the fare, but must go back for money. "Oh, you needn't get off. That's all right," said he. "All right," said I, "but I haven't a copper on me." "Oh, I will book you through," he replied. And he said, the conductor said, "Oh, you need not get off. That's at all. That's all right." And he also said, "All right." But I haven't a copper on me. So he did not have money. He told it to the conductor. "Oh, I will book you through, though," he replied. "Where would you want to go?" And he handled his bundle of tickets with the air of a man who was prepared to give me a ticket for anywhere from the bank to Hong Kong. And the conductor just said that wherever you want to go, and he gave the bundle of tickets to the author. I said it was very kind of him and told him where I wanted to go. And as he gave me the tickets, I said, "But where shall I send the fare?" So, very politely, the conductor gave him the tickets, and he said that wherever you want to go, you can go. And very kindly to him, he said and told him where I wanted to go. And as he gave the tickets to him, the author asked him that where shall he pay the money, pay the fare. Oh, you will see me someday, all right, he said cheerfully. He turned to go, and then, luckily, my fingers, still wandering in the corner of my pocket, lighted on a shilling, and the account was squared. So, suddenly, still he was searching for the money in his pocket, and very surprisingly, he found a shilling in his pocket, and the account was settled with the conductor. He gave the fare, and account was settled over there only. But that fact did not lessen the glow of pleasure which so good natured an action had given me. But that that fact that he gave the money, he gave the fare to the conductor, did not lessen, did not make it less important. The glow of pleasure which is so good natured an action was of the conductor. A few days after, my most sensitive toe was trampled on rather heavily as I sat reading on the top of a bus. I looked up with some anger and more agony and saw my friend of the cheerful countenance. Sorry, sir, he said. See this. One day, he was just sitting in the bus, and his toe was trampled by the one of the passengers very heavily when he was reading on the top of the bus, and he looked up with some anger and more agony because his toe was in pain, and he saw his friend of the cheerfully countenance very cheerfully on a cheerfulness on his face. He saw uh, up, and sorry sir, he said. The passenger said, sorry sir, I know these are heavy boots. God damn, because my own feet get trod on so much, and now I am treading on other people's. Hope I didn't hurt you, sir. He had hurt me, but he was so nice about it that I assured him he hadn't. See this. How the situation gets relaxed or smooth when you become courteous. That the passenger who had trampled on the toe of the author, he just said sorry, and the thing was very nicely done, and the atmosphere got very smooth. He had hurt me, but he was so nice about it that I assured him he hadn't. After this, I began to observe him whenever I boarded his bus, and found a curious pleasure in the constant good nature of his bearing. He seemed to have an inexhaustible fund of patience and a gift for making his passengers comfortable. See this. The conductor who had trampled his feet, and he just went on observing him, and what he observed, he observed that he had so much of patience and curious pleasure in the constant good nature of his bearing. He seemed to have an inexhaustible fund of patience. Inexhaustible means what? Unlimited patience he had, and a gift for making his passengers comfortable. I noticed that if it was raining, he would he would run up the stairs to give someone the tip that there was a room inside. See this. He also noticed that if it is raining outside and if somebody is standing on the door of the bus, he would go straight forward to the door and he will give a notice that there is a room inside to sit. That much courteous, that much good nature that conductor was. With old people, he was as considerate as a son, and with children as solicitous as a father. See this. With the old people, he was very considerate, very comfortable with as a son. He was very considerate like a son, and with the children, he was a solicitous as a father. Solicitous means what? Caring or concerned as a father. He had evidently a particularly warm place in his heart by young people, and always indulged in some merry jest with them. And he also had a humorous manners, and he used to keep himself busy, indulged in some merry jokes or merry jest with the passengers, with the people. If he had a blind man on board, it was not enough to set him down safely on the pavement. He would call to Bill in front of in front to wait while he took him across the road or round the corner, or otherwise safely on his way. In short, I found that he irritated such an atmosphere of a good temper and kindliness that a journey with him was a lesson in natural courtesy and good manners. Serious. So the conductor was very nice a person, and if any blind man boards, uh, it was not enough to set him down safely on the pavement. If somebody is blind and who is boarding down the pavement, he would not only board him down safely on the pavement, he would also just cross him uh, cross him across the road, and just round the corner, and otherwise safely on his way. So in short, he found that he had created such an atmosphere of a good temper and kindliness that a journey with him was a lesson in natural courtesy and a good manners. So this was the example of a conductor. What struck me particularly was the ease with which he got through his work. If bad manners are infectious, so also are good manners. So, what he liked uh, particularly of the conductor, the easiness with which he got through the work, how nicely the conductor is working. And he says, writer says that if the bad manners are infectious, then good manners are also infectious. If we encounter incivility, most of us are apt to become uncivil, but it is an unusually uncouth person who can be disagreeable with clears sunny clears up my spirits like a fine day. So, if we behave badly with the bad people, we also can behave good in a good manner with the good people, because as the bad manners are infectious, also the good manners are also infectious. It is with manners as with the weather. Nothing clears up my spirits like the fine day, said kids. And a cheerful person descends on even the gloomiest of us with something of the benediction of a fine day. Serious. So, Keats had said this. John Keats, nothing clears up my spirits like a fine day. And a cheerful person descends on even the gloomiest of us with something of the benediction of a fine day, a blessing. So, whenever you meet with the good person or a decent person, it will uh, it will be a gloomiest of us with the something of the benediction of a fine day, blessings of that day when you meet with the good mannered person. John Keats say. And so it was always fine weather on the polite conductor's bus and his own civility. His conciliatory address and good humored bearing infected his passengers. Serious. So, to travel on the bus with this conductor, it is always a fine weather, fine atmosphere on the polite conductor's bus, and his own civility, his conciliatory address, conciliatory to win his friendly manner, friendly nature, and good humored bearing infected his passengers. Means the passengers also behaved very nicely with the conductor. In lightening their spirits, he lightened his own task. His gaiety was not his gaiety was not a wasteful luxury, but a sound investment. I have missed him from my bus route of late, but I hope that only means that he has carried his sunshine on to another road. So the author had missed him from his bus route of late. When he got late, he missed that bus and he could not climb that conductor's bus. But he hoped that only means that he has carried his sunshine to the another road. It cannot be too widely diffused in a rather drab word, and I make no apologies for writing a panegyric, a speech uh, on an unknown bus conductor. If Wordsworth could gather lessons of wisdom from the poor leech gatherer on the lonely moor, I see no reason why lesser people should not take lessons in conduct from one who shows how a very modest calling may be dignified by the good temper and kindly feeling. If the Wordsworth can get the lessons from the poor leech gatherer, then we people also can get the lessons of good conduct from whoever who shows how a very modest calling may be dignified by the good temper and kindly feeling. We also can be good people and take the lessons from the lesser people, inferior people.